Welcome back, everyone. We're here again on YouTube and LinkedIn with another exciting episode of the Top Innovator Series. This is where we dive into proven leadership ideas, innovation strategies, and of course, we hear from the brilliant minds behind them. My name is Josef Martens, and I'm excited to introduce our guest today. With us today is Jordan Taylor. Jordan is the CTO of UnityCloud and the Executive Director of Grid Alternatives. He's also the chair of the board of directors of SynergyGrid. Before that, he held various other leadership roles. Many of them are in the energy industry. And we're thrilled to have Jordan with us today. Jordan, it's great to have you here. Jordan,
It's
let's
great to be here. Thanks for having me.
let's talk about leadership. You're clearly successful in your journey, very accomplished. When you look at your own journey, when you look at your own progression as a leader, what do you think are the ingredients to your success? What got you to where you are today?
So what got me to where I am today, I think, is really actually being genuinely invested in people. I had a lot of very critical people who changed the overall trajectory of my life, and I am forever grateful for them.
Hmm.
And one mentor in particular, he was really big on paying it forward, and so I think I've embodied that really to as much as I have in my abilities to help encourage other people to find their thing, their niche, their uncover their overall superpowers is a lot of what we talk about.
Sounds neat. I love the idea. How do you do this? And how do you get people to help them discover their superpower? How do you unearth that?
So I think that it's really important, for me in the role that I serve as a mentor. I stay a student. I'm always learning, and I look at them as learning opportunities to learn the person. When you learn the person first, you then unlock their overall abilities because you can then tell what things make them tick. You understand where, from a third party perspective, you feel like are their strengths, and then to be able to help them come to that realization. And
Mm,
so I spend a decent amount of time investing into, my mentees. I did a lot of sales training. That was one of the, funnest times that I had. Started, got my cut my teeth in the business development space when I transitioned from engineering into solar and solar sales of all things. And so we're in the mall environment, we're door knocking and all these kinds
wow.
of things.
Okay.
And so to be able to help unlock someone's potential, you really have to understand the environments that they thrive in, a lot about their background and things that they have affinities towards, and then put them in positions to be able to succeed. Sales is very much a mental game. And so to be able to unlock that, you want to put them, it's a little bit of putting the training wheels on to help them build up that confidence. And then that's where you start to notice, you can get those self-reinforcing feedback loops where you say, that was it right there. Did you see how that person reacted to you? And those are things where you help provide that insight. Most people already have that available to them. They just need someone to be able to help reinforce them. So it's a lot more just helping them identify a lot of the things that they already know are there, but then it's just that little bit that you help to bring it out and get it over the next step.
Interesting. You talk about a sales background there. So I'm generalizing and say this has a lot to do with influencing other people in their decision making. And that's a skill not everyone has in technology. Would you say that's fair to say?
Very much so. I love my fellow nerds, and I but I definitely know the perils of
Mm,
falling too deeply into the rabbit hole. We forget to get outside, touch grass, socialize with people, but
mm,
it is one of the most impactful skill sets that I personally have learned because again, coming from very heavy duty engineering and very focused on a lot of the left brain activities, you kind of get myopically focused on very concrete achieving tasks. And that was one of the things that I thought was the worst was transitioning into business development. People are very squishy. You don't have fixed rule sets. And it was not something that I actually enjoyed, but somehow, some way, I started to be able to learn, to dissect it, to start taking it apart and deconstructing it, just like you would any sort of machine or device, to be able to start learning it. And then you start to see a lot of the commonalities. And those are some of the places where I felt comfortable in leveraging a lot of my technical abilities and applying that to kind of social psychology. And then to be able to then marry those things together where now it became systematic, then I started to notice those patterns. And then to be able to check those things off and translating that for a lot of business development people don't necessarily have a lot of the technical approach to things, but then to be able to again encourage them and marry them, you know the information, you know the knowledge, and that's all it is being able to help engage with somebody to transfer that energy and excitement. I loved solar. That was really, my cheat code, because I'm a tree hugger. It's like I wanted to help the environment, I wanted to help people, and I didn't feel the kind of sleazy salesperson vibe because of the nature of what we were doing. We're helping people save money. This is good for the environment. And really, in sales and business development, I was making way more than I made in engineering. So it was a triple win. And so to be able to tap into the latent space and opportunity that was there, to be able to then leverage my superpower, which was having that technical capacity, and then to be able to really dig into learning that social science piece,
Mhm.
marrying those things together, which was how I discovered, oh, wow, I can actually be really good at this, because not a lot of people have the technical capacity and can break it down simply for people that they can understand and appreciate.
Mhm. What you said there about having found your energy in solar and having been or being a tree hugger,
No pun
what
intended, right?
no, no, no. But what it also means is, right, you really found almost a mission-driven business, right? Or you've connected it with the purpose that you've identified for yourself. What would you say to someone who doesn't have that passion? Because not everyone has, right? Um, Being driven for the environment, sustainability, or so, obviously great causes, but not everyone feels that way. So, what would you say to someone who is not having that?
So I think that it's a discovery process. Um, Finding out what things you have an affinity towards. What do you find yourself doing on a regular basis that you almost can't help yourself from doing?
Okay.
And you can actually touch, base with your best friends, your families, a lot of your network, who can see through a very long trajectory. Oh, Jordan is always going to nerd out. He's always going to drill in and dig into the nth level of questioning, and he's always taking something apart or destroying something, dissecting something, and that analytical nature. So I already knew that I had an affinity towards engineering. And the thing about the environment and nature was, for me, I found myself oftentimes, my family, my mom's side is from Southern Virginia, and I felt like I belonged. It was just something when I would go there, which is very rural, very much outside, outdoors. We played, ran around without our shoes on, and it was something that I connected with. And being growing up, I think it was seeing a lot of the destruction of the overall environment and learning about how the opportunity for renewable energy could help to resolve some of that. And this is something that built over time. This wasn't something that I necessarily knew, but you start to put things in your bag. Like I said, you got the
Mm.
analytical, you've got the engineering, and then you find out that you really enjoy nature. And I really want to see the planet in the next 30 and 80 plus years, and I want to have kids too. And I want to see them on this planet. I don't want to have to go to Mars with Elon. So, what can I do for my everyday that both provides a solid future for myself? And I don't want to walk around with gas masks on. And then also for future generations, and to be able to select an occupation that achieves both of those goals. I already was in that direction and found myself doing it on a more regular basis. And then to be able to discover, oh, wow, there is an occupation, there is a profession that leverages this ability that I've got for analytical thinking, but then also has that component where it's helping to make a better environment and a better space for not only the planet, but also people, because renewable energy, the freest resource that we can get. And people oftentimes are paying way more than they should for things like fossil fuels and those type of energy generation systems, which pollute our environment and are just more costly.
Got it. I'd like to talk about your mentors for a moment. I imagine you had mentors, trusted advisors, or people who were following you on your journey. What was some advice you got from them that really sticks with you? Advice that really resonated, something that was important to you that they shared with you?
This literally is it's so simple. It's embarrassing because one of the things that I had found, I've been doing engineering for a while. And this mentor, this is actually,
Mhm.
I met him in the seventh grade. My seventh grade science fair project was a vertical wind turbine. Yes. What seventh grader do you know who is building that? But I've been banging hammers since I was in Pampers. So again, this was something that was already innate. And I ended up having him as a part of my life for a very long time. I ended up having him throughout high school. He was my physics professor, my robotics mentor. And then I ended up transferring from the original school that I got a scholarship for because it wasn't really the place for engineers. And then he was a Penn State alum. So I transferred to there. And, I called him up. I said, "Hey, Willie D, what's good? I'm over here at Penn State." And I was asking just for some recommendations, and I thought that he was going to give me a call back. Turns out I see this white cobalt driving down the street, and lo and behold, it is him. I was like, "What are you doing here?" It turns out he had become a professor. He'd gone back to his alma mater, and I ended up having him for some of my statics, my dynamics, one of my nuclear engineering courses, and we begin to rebuild our connection. And while I was going through working, we stayed in touch. And I was just like, it's something about this that I'm not feeling. And he said, listen to your gut. If it does not suit you, don't do it. You don't have
Mm.
to do it. And you have a very long life to live and figure the rest of the things out. Go try something new. Go do something different. And when we met, I'm building wind turbines. He said, why don't you go do something like that? Find out where you can investigate and invest your time in a place in which you think is fun, you think is enjoyable, you think that is going to suit your person. And it is okay that if you don't get it right on the first shot, you don't have to do it. Try again. That simple message, I was just like, huh, because a lot of times, and I see this often, is that people feel as though that they are locked into these things. And sometimes it is these mental or moral obligations. And the thing is that I try to be a great person, but who's going to take care of you better than you will? You have to think about your own self and your own person. And one of my quotes is, you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you are drained, how do you expect to be able to give to anybody else, to yourself, or to the world? And so you must be able to focus on those things, tap into your intuition, tap into your gut instinct to find that thing is going to make you flourish, to make you bloom, and to make you grow as a person, because that is the only way you're going to be able to succeed, is if you're doing something that resonates with who you are.
That's a great message. Absolutely great message. And there's so much in there. There is obviously a lot of trust and confidence by your mentor in you in that. And that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. What's a leadership tool or a leadership approach or something that you do as a leader that is one of your go-to tools or your go-to things that you do as a leader? Let's say you come into a situation, you're stuck, not quite sure what to do. What's sort of the go-to tool that always works, the fallback leadership approach?
Hmm. My fallback leadership approach. One of the things that I do for difficult decision making is I break it down into different categories. Is this thing, will this cause irreparable damage? And if it will cause irreparable damage, if I cannot back off of this, then that's something where I'm going to reserve that choice. That's when we break the glass. But if it is not, pull the trigger and move forward. We can always fix it later. And so, because oftentimes we're dealing with, again, it could be somebody's livelihood. And so it is a role and responsibility that I take seriously in ensuring that I can both guide people in the right direction for their own career trajectories, as well as the work that we're engaging in. And so oftentimes a lot of what we do impacts the overall business. And if we're making choices without a sound foundation of reasoning, or that is in haste, and it ultimately affects people, those people lose their jobs, they lose the ability to take care of their families. And so being able to make tough and critical decisions is something that executives and leaders do on a regular basis. But you also, as an engineer, we oftentimes suffer from analysis paralysis, and there are so many different factors to consider. And so, in order to be able to move forward, in order to be able to continue making progress within the business, you do have to fail, but you have to fail forward. The only way that I felt comfortable being able to fail forward was boiling it down to its most simple and fundamental concepts. Is this something that we cannot be able to walk away from? You know, kind of, did you die? You know, and you can't come back if you die, if you did it. So as long as it is not a life and death decision, we can always figure out how to mitigate risk. We can make the most intelligent choices moving forward. And if, as we are assessing this real time, as we're making these decisions and we find out that we're getting negative feedback, all right, we need to stop, reassess, and reallocate. But ultimately, we're never going to smash the glass on something where, hey, we've now done something where we cannot walk it back.
We talked about your past leadership journey. I'd love to take a look at today, Jordan. And again, it's not a question about positions, companies, projects, still about your leadership journey. When you look at where you are today, what are current areas of growth for you? Where do you put your attention? Where do you put your focus in terms of your own development as a leader?
So I would say that for many of the areas that I want to grow in are some of my ability to be more patient. Um, we talked about making hasty and fast decisions. I think there is always the go, go, go mentality. There's always the growth mentality, but there is a lot of power. There's a lot of skill. There's a lot of intelligence in being able to sit back and to be able to wait and then to be able to assess. You have to have a clear mind when you're thinking about making decisions. And that's one of the areas that, as I'm moving forward, seeing the amount of impact that we have in the different organizations that I'm serving, it very much becomes even more critical in this time and juncture, because some of the things that we are doing, maybe not making some of these irreparable decisions, but we are definitely setting a track and a course where ultimately long term, we don't know if we will be able to turn back, especially when you think about some of the implications, you know, when it relates to artificial intelligence, because again, that's one of the hot topics that is on the tips of everybody's tongue today. And what we want to do is, how are we able to think through the most impactful way to apply these things in our organizations? What are the impacts on the overall environment? How are we dealing with some of the future ramifications when this is a technology that tends to supersede the knowledge of most every person? Most of the benchmarks currently are over 100%. So now these things are scoring well above the all professionals in many categories. So to be able to understand what those future implications are very difficult. So it does deserve us taking a step back and taking time to think about, what are the future implications of what our next steps are, what these next moves are. so that we can do them in the most intelligent manner. And again, we're not going to get everything right, but being able to take the time to fully assess what the landscape of opportunities look like, what the landscape of decisions that we have, and what those ramifications may be.
So, what I hear there is being reflective and very intentional about what the steps are that we're taking, instead of hastily running into something where we may not even know the consequences.
Yep. Because, for sure, I think it's a great thing in business to be able to be decisive. And, I was always a gunslinger, a trigger puller.
Hmm.
We're going to get it done and we're going to get it figured out in the meantime. And I do think that there is always a time and place for that. But again, like I said, seeing a lot of the impact that we have, not only is it just on our immediate future. This is a very long-term future. Societies, the environment, livelihoods of a large
Yeah,
number of swaths of people. And so to be considerate of that, I think as much time as we can give that to be as thoughtful as possible,
yeah,
we definitely should.
yeah. Let me ask you a last question, Jordan, and then we'll wrap it up. If you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about leadership in general, about how many leaders lead their teams, what would you change?
Magic wand. If I had a magic wand to be able to change the way leaders lead, is that there was an immediate feedback mechanism. And I'm going to say more about this. One of the things that I see is it is a very crucial and critical um, advantage that leaders have, because many times they don't have to necessarily answer to any other authority. But when you get feedback that is an immediate response, that it is impacting other people, you can course correct and make those choices. There are many leaders that don't have those considerations, and I think that as leaders, that's probably one of the most important things that should be considered because of the position of power that you've been put in. And to treat it with negligence, I think is a lot of the negative externalities that we're experiencing currently in our overall business market and in society today, or a lot of these negative that feedback and response as they are making these decisions, and many of them are, whether it be self-serving or immediate gratification, that is not necessarily for the larger or greater good. But I think that when that greater good can be served, when a multitude of people can be benefited, it creates a better and more fertile environment for everything that grows out of it. And that's one of the things that I think would be my magic wand, because it helps people and helps leaders to be able to better assess the decisions that they're making as they're moving forward.
Very nice. Have them see the impact and create a feedback loop, a fast feedback loop with that. Jordan, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you in the conversation here.
It's been a fantastic conversation. Thanks for having me.
To everyone else out there, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Join us again for the next episode of the Top Innovator Series. And until then, make sure to keep your brain cells active.